Hi guys, welcome back to Art at Home with Miss Roxanne. So we're going to be taking a look in our little art bag. So much fun. And what we're going to be doing today is working with clay. So we'll put that away and I'm going to show you my little sample. So we are going to be making containers today. You could call it a container, you could call it a vessel, you could call it a bowl, you could call it a pot. There's lots of different words. So what we're going to be doing is learning two ways to make a little bowl. You could call it the first way that we're going to learn is called a pinch pot. And the second way that we're going to learn is called a coil pot. So this finished product that I have right here, this is a coil pot, but I'm actually going to squish this up and get ready to turn it into a pinch pot. So this is the nice thing about clay is even though I made a lovely little piece, I can squish it, I can change it, I can go back and start over from the beginning. So I'm going to take my little ball of clay and set it right down, and I'm going to turn the camera around so that you can see what we're doing. You get a quick clip of the house, and then there it is, our little workspace. So whenever I'm working with clay, I start by giving it a good squeeze. And the reason that we're giving it a good squeeze to begin with, there's two reasons actually. And the first reason is that we want to really work the clay. We want to get that elasticity in it, that flexibility. And the second reason is our therapeutic reason, and that's because it feels so nice and so soothing and so calming and so reassuring to work with clay. Clay has a nice solid feel to it. When you give it a good stress squeeze, it lets you stress squeeze it. So clay is a good spot to bring all of that stress energy. And if you have lots and lots of calm energy and you're not feeling the stress at all, clay is still good to use. So I'm going to take it and roll it into a nice little ball in my hands here. And I'm going to use the table to help me as well. And you can see that when I'm rolling into a ball, I'm moving my hand in a circle. I'm not just going back and forth because that would get me a little coil snake. I'm rolling it into a ball by moving my hand in a circle, and I'm pressing lightly. I'm letting the motion do the work instead of using all my force, because then I get a flat little pancake. So I'm going to squeeze it back again. And we're going to go through our steps nice and slow and make ourselves a pinch pot followed by a coil pot. So before we begin, we're going to take a nice deep breath together. So we're going to breathe in and breathe out slow. And we'll do that one more time. Breathe in and breathe out slow. So now I'm going to just tap the top of my clay to make a nice little flat surface, and I'm going to find the middle, and I'm going to push my thumb in. So now I've got a little indent in the middle there. And I'm going to go pretty slow, but you can go fast if you want. And what I'm doing is I'm just pressing my thumb into the side and turning it a little at a time, and you can see already it's starting to take the shape of a bowl. So I'm just pinching with my thumb and my fingers and turning, and because I'm turning and pinching just a little at a time, I'm using patience. It's starting to shape into a nice little bowl. So here's my pinch pot container. It's a little bit thick, so what I'm going to do is press it gently on the table and then give it a light little tap on top so it has a flat bottom. And now that it's got a flat bottom, I'm going to keep pinching those sides more without picking it up. Now I'm doing this with one hand just to show you, but you'd be doing it with two hands like this. But if I do it with two hands, then you can't see. So I'm going to do it with one hand, just to show you. And now with my thumb, I'm just smoothing out any parts on the inside so that it's really, really smooth. I think now's a good time for another deep breath. Let's take one all together. We'll breathe in and breathe it out. Breathe it in. Let it out. And we'll come right back to our clay. So you can see the top of my clay, because I've been working it, it has these little cracks in it, and that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly rub those cracks. Not a big push, just a light smoothing. And maybe a little bit of pinching here and there. And that's going to bring those cracks back together as much as we need them to. And I'm just going to roll these edges a little bit. Every piece of clay is a little bit different. So yours is not going to look exactly the same as mine, but you can kind of feel around. You can feel what it needs. Mine is a little bit lopsided leaning this way, so I feel like it needs to come back this way a little. So I'm going to roll it this way. And I'm going to lightly press my hand on top and roll it evenly all the way around. Now I like that a lot more. And you can see this is my pinch pot. So we made this lovely little jar entirely by just pinching and turning. Now you can leave yours just like this, or you could squish it up with me and learn how to make a coil pot. So I'm going to go back to it and I'm going to give it a good squeeze. I need both hands for a really good squeeze. There we go. Then I'm going to roll it together, and then I'm going to use my table to help me and roll it into a circle. But this time we are going to make something called a coil pot. And a coil pot is made using coils. For us, we're going to use one long coil. So I'm going to roll this out like a long, long strand of spaghetti, and I'm going to see if I can get all the way to the end of the table. So I'm going to start by going just back and forth. And I'm starting out with just one hand, but pretty soon I'm going to bring in both hands. Here we go. So now I've got a short tube, and we're going to keep rolling. Now it feels like another good time for a deep breath. Let's breathe it in again. Breathe in and breathe out. Let's see if at home you can do one tiny little quiet breath. See if you can do your tiniest little breath. We're going to breathe in, go, and breathe out, go. And then I want to hear you do your loudest breath. So you're going to breathe in really, really deep and breathe it out. Very nice. So when I'm making my coil here, in order to get it long and skinny, I want it to be even the whole way through. So you can see that I'm rolling with both fingers, with both hands, and I start with my fingers in the middle, and then I'm lightly working my fingers out to the edge. And that's what's keeping it nice and even. And the way that I'm going to get it really long and skinny is by not putting too much pressure on, because if I put too much pressure and I just read it back and forth like this, then we get all these little lumps and bumps in the middle. We don't want any of that at all. So I'm going to roll it back out. And whenever I see one spot get to be too thick and another spot get to be too thin, I just put a little more pressure on the spot that's too thick. And we're doing pretty well so far. I think we're going to be able to get all the way to the end of the table. There it goes. Just a little bit of time and a little bit of patience. And it all works out. I've got a little flat spot in the middle. I can hear it go thump, thump, thump. So I'm going to focus on just that for a second. There we go. It's a little bit better. I can still hear that flat spot, but that's all right. So we're rolling, 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 using that light pressure. I'm going pretty quick with this, but you can also go nice and slow. Let's see, we're getting close. Can we get this coil all the way to the end of the table? Come back to the middle and press it out. So I'm rolling just the far end now, but I'm still keeping an eye on this end down here and making sure that it doesn't get to be too different from the far end. Oh, it's going to be a close one. Almost got a break happening here, and you don't want that at all. So I'm going to squeeze this little spot. This little spot right here almost broke on me, so I'm just squeezing it back together, pushing it in, and now I'm going to be extra, extra careful with that spot. That spot needs a little extra attention. And here we go, all the way to the end. Can we do it? We're so close. Almost at the end of the table. There it is. Okay, so now we've got our one long coil of clay right here. And I'm going to start from this end where you can see. You can start from either end, but I'm starting from the end that you can see. And I'm just going to start to wrap it in on itself to make a little spiral. You want to go slow so your clay doesn't break. But your clay is going to be a little bit fresher than my clay, because my clay I worked with a few times before. So to fix those breaks, I'm just giving it a gentle squeeze. And I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep wrapping until it's about the size of my thumb. Yeah, that looks just right to me. So now I've got a little coil, just like this, the size of my thumb, just about. And this is going to be the bottom of our coil pot. So to make it a nice, strong, sturdy foundation, I'm pressing on top to get those seams, those spaces in between the clay coils, to press together. And when I've got those really, really, really jammed together, then I'll be ready to move on to the next step for our coil pot. So we're going to lift up the clay, lift up our little coil circle. When you're working with a coil pot, especially if it's on a wood surface, it's going to stick a little. So I'm very, very slowly lifting so it doesn't stick. And beep. 2 little breaks. That's okay. We just squeeze them back together. That is the wonderful thing about clay, is that you can repair absolutely anything. So now I'm going to take my end of my coil and I'm going to wrap it on top of my base. So I'm going to start to bring it around. How about I turn this so you can see it? I'm going to start to bring it around. And I've laid those coils on top of the base. So I'm building up my next layer. And now I'm going to take the rest of this, squeeze back together any of those broken spots. There we go. And I'm going to press it on top, just like that. So I'm going to start to build up the sides of my little coil pot. Now if yours completely breaks apart, you can build it in different sections. But I like to squeeze mine all the way back together if I have those little breaks so that I get my one long spaghetti strand. Now I'm going to really start to wrap it on top. So each layer wraps on top of the one underneath. And as you go, you want to give a little pinch. Even though this is called a coil pot, we're still going to use some of our pinch pot method, where we're squeezing and pinching together. That last bit broke off, but I'm definitely going to come back to it. That clay is still very much usable. In fact, I'm going to give it a good squeeze, and I'm going to roll this little bit back out into a coil again. There we go. This time I am using a little bit more pressure to make that coil perfect. And I'm going to attach it on. So now we have the basic part of our coil pot, where we've got our coils stacked up on top of each other. But the next step that we want to take is really get them to fuse together. And I'm going to do that by squeezing the coils and smoothing it. I want to do it so that you can see, but I also need to get this part in front. So I'm going to gently lift that up, and I'm going to use that pinching method to really get everything to stick together. Now the next step, because I do feel like these things have stuck together quite well, and they're as smooth as I'm going to get them right now. So my next step is to think about the inside. And you can see, maybe you can see, there's a little bit of a space where the bottom is not completely squeezed on to the side. So the way that I'm going to fix that is by taking my thumb, I've got my thumb on the inside, and I'm just smoothing from the bottom to the sides. So that little joint from the bottom to the side, where it could start to separate, I'm smoothing it together. And I'm going to use the table to help me a little bit as well. So I'm going to take the bottom edge here, and I'm going to roll it on the table very, very lightly. And that's going to help me get the shape that I want. So we've got the basic shape of our air dry clay here. And the reason that we're going to use air dry clay is because that means it dries just right all by itself. So this clay doesn't need to get baked in the oven, and it doesn't need to dry out for a week and then go into the kiln. It's going to be just right on its own. I'm just tapping the top here to even it out, get it to be a nice level top. And I'm going to turn it over. I decided I didn't want to do that. Yours might stand up to it, but mine is getting a little bit fragile, so I have to be a little more gentle than I would ordinarily be. So we've got the shape of our air dry container, and I can fit all kinds of things in here. I could put, let's see, I could put some paper clips in here. I could use this to store my paper clips, or I could put change in here. I could put my coins in. You could use it for earrings. You could use it to store a watch. You could use it for beads. If you like to use beads to make crafts, or if you like to use beads to decorate your hair, you could keep all kinds of little beads in here. You could use it for hair ties. You could put almost anything in here. So that's our clay container, two ways, pinch pot style and coil style. Because this is air dry clay, we're actually going to be able to color on it with markers. So it's going to need to dry overnight, but next time when we do our next video, that's going to be decorating our beautiful little clay vessel with some markers. So we'll make it bright and colorful. All right, thanks for making art with me. See you next time. Bye-bye.